Hi there, how are you? Good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm here.
Tell you why.
Anton, I think we lost you.
I've lost my marbles. That's what I've done. Can you hear me now?
Yes, now
Yes.
we can.
Yeah, sorry. I kept talking, but mute. So, oh dear. What I was trying to say is we're here today to help founders with whatever questions you may have on your talent journey. Unfortunately, over 90% of startups fail, and the top three reasons for that are one, market fit, two, running out of money, and three, not having the right people. But when it comes down to it, there is one thing that really matters, and that is having the right people to make sure you get the right market fit, to make sure you don't run out of money, and if you do, to make sure that you've got the right people to find that money. The idea now, it's quite simple. We will have some quick introductions. Then I'll be asking my amazing panelists for their do's and don'ts when it comes to early stage hiring. And then we'll be taking questions from yourselves. Now, a reminder to those of you that are on the live streams, please bear in mind that unfortunately we are unable to monitor your questions there live. So you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's an audio only call, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. Quickest way to do that is to go onto our website, startup2scaleup.club. You scroll down a little bit, you'll find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 180. Click join. It's a quick registration on Luma. There you'll be able to see today's link, which is the Microsoft Teams link. And once you're here, then simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, you introduce yourself, and then fire away with your question. Again, there are no wrong questions and there's no need to be shy. It's a learning curve for us all. You can ask us anything related to your startup talent, whether you want to know how and where to find the right people, maybe how to interview them, how to assess them, how to convince them to come and work for you, how much you should pay them, what kind of skills and backgrounds they should have, or maybe what kind of tasks you should give them, how to build your company culture, and how to train and empower them to be the best they can, and all that jazz. Again, there are no wrong questions and no need to be shy because it's a learning curve for us all. If, however, your questions today are not on startup talent, please save them for the other conversations we run. On Mondays, it's talent. On Tuesdays, it's product and tech. On Wednesdays, it's growth. On Thursdays, it's fundraising. Second Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Law. And third Friday of each month, it's UK Startup Finances. However, from February, we'll only have one startup week per month. Monday to Friday, we'll have 6 events where you can join and get help on all of those 6 topics that I mentioned. So, without further ado, my name's Anton Call. I'm an Albanian in London working with startups normally right after they get investment. I embed within their teams and help them hire and keep the right people. I also do some growth advisory work with a few other startups and accelerators and help some angels and family offices with their due diligence and assessment. We can start with Emily, then Margaret, and then James, please.
Thanks, Anton. My name is Emily Coolin. I'm a Canadian in the UK. And after 20-something years in HR, I spend my time now as a founder coach working with a lot of scaling organizations, both in people strategy and executive leadership coaching. And I work with companies in all sectors, but typically ones who are in the deep tech or high tech. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. My name is Margaret Bui. I have been working in recruitment for 20 years. During that time, I've hired for different tech companies of different sizes, from startups, Series A, B, C, and D, to large tech companies such as Expedia or VMware. I've hired across all different functions and different geographies. And apart from that, I do interview, coaching, and training, and I'll be happy to answer any questions related to hiring, training, and interview.
Thank you, Margaret. I am James Peters. I currently work at Cisco, have also worked for Meta and Microsoft in the past. Similar, have over 20 years in the sort of the recruitment industry. I also spent a bunch of time between Microsoft and my time at Meta, working for an embedded talent consultancy where I focused on startups, predominantly in London, but also in places like Berlin and Helsinki as well. Partnering with the founders, scaling their product and engineering teams after funding. So anything really from Series A through to Series C, and also did some advisory work within an incubator as well, working with founders and helping them towards seed funding. Thank you very much.
What a brilliant team we have today. Thank you very much to all 3 of you for joining us. How about some do's and don'ts? I'm sure you've seen some interesting stuff out there that founders do and don't. What matters to you most? What would you say it's one, or maybe if you want to think of more than one, that's fine too, that matters to you when it comes to early stage hiring? Again, on this one, we'll start with Emily, then Margaret, and last but not least, James, and then we'll start sort of alternating.
Thanks, Anton. So what matters to me most when a founder or a founding team is considering their early stage hiring, whether they've hired before or they're just really and expanding or just starting the process, is that they are really, really clear on what they actually need. It is very easy to be swayed by experience or education or some pedigree, and that may be lovely, but often you can't afford those people and they may not be actually the fit for what you need for the stage your company's in. So if a founder is looking to bring on board any talent in any area, it has to be something or somebody that fits what they need in the moment or in the time. It doesn't have to be something that's going to fit in 2 years, because that's a very different company then. So to me, they have to really be very, very clear on what they actually need and what is going to be a fit for their organization.
Sorry, do I go now? I thought they were done. Okay, fine. So in terms of do's, I would maybe mention a couple. So first one, just like really kind of really define the real business outcomes behind the hire. So like if you hire a product manager or growth marketer, like what's the actual result that you want this person to achieve, and do write a one-page scorecard before you start hiring. So key objective, core skills, cultural traits, and also success metrics for the first 6 to 12 months. This will really help you just to ensure that you're hiring the right person for the right at the right stage of the, you know, for the stage the business is in. And also do challenge whether the role needs to be full-time contractor or fractional, because many startups overhire too early. And I would also say, like, you know, move fast, but you also want to be quite structured. So I would create a lightweight a process that's consistent. So maybe like a recruiter or founder screen first, hiring manager deep dive, then some kind of skills assessment or a case. Could be just something that takes a couple of hours time, and maybe a final call with the founder and then the reference checks. And also like really maintain have some kind of candidate tracker so that no one falls through the cracks. Like one startup I worked for, like it was just a complete disaster. Like they literally, like none of the candidates were contacted because no one was tracking that. And you also want to communicate timelines upfront and give next step after every stage. And in terms of don'ts, so I would just say, like, you know, avoid reactive hiring, because just because you need someone now, that typically leads to wrong fits and early turnover. And also that don't oversell or underpay, you know, like don't exaggerate the product maturity, funding or runway. Top candidates will sense that misalignment. And also don't assume that equity makes up for a low salary, because typically it doesn't. So yeah, these are my two do's and don'ts.
For myself, so a do for me would be I guess define the problem before the role. So I think clarity always beats headcount. So always hard to solve a specific bottleneck you're currently having. Do test for ownership, I would say. You know, look for people who finish things, you know, without being chased. So that's what I would say from a do perspective. And don't overvalue pedigree. So, you know, startups, you know, great people trained only for, you know, for certain environments. So I think definitely stress test that. And also don't skip alignment on pace and standards. I always find anything misaligned always encounters issues, you know, later down the line.
Thank you very much for that, team. I think it's time we go on to some questions now. I will share a question that was sent in to us. In the meantime, those of you that are on the live streams, if you've got any questions for our panelists, we can't monitor those questions live, so you'll have to join us here on our Microsoft Teams call, which is audio only, and it means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. Quickest way to do that, it's via our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Again, it's startuptoscaleup.club. Once you make it there, simply scroll down a little bit. You'll find today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 180. You click join. It's a quick registration on Luma. There you'll find today's link for our Microsoft Teams call. And then once you click on that, you'll be able to join our call. Once you're here, simply drop your question in the chat like I just have now. And by the way, the panelists can look at it whilst I'm doing the reset of the call. And yeah, you drop your question in the chat. We give you the mic. You introduce yourself, fire away with your question. Today, we're taking questions on talent. So anything to do with you finding and keeping the right people for your startup, whether that's co-founders, advisors, fractionals, early stage employees, and all that jazz, really. If, however, your questions are not on talent, please save them for the other conversations we run. And that is, on top of talent, we do one on product and tech, then growth, then fundraising, then legal, and last but not least, finances. So without further ado, we'll now move on to our first question rather. I've put that in the chat for the panelists to refer to it, but I'll read it out loud for the live streams. As the founder of a pre-seed marine tech startup in Plymouth, where we're developing smart buoy systems to monitor coastal water quality, I'm noticing that my small team is stretched thin due to the demands of field research and technical development. With limited resources, what affordable steps can we take to actively support employee well-being, especially for those working in challenging outdoor conditions? Additionally, how can we create a work-life balance policy that considers both field and office-based roles, ensuring all team members feel valued and supported? That's an interesting one. Let's see, maybe we can start. Let's start with James, then Margaret, and last but not least, Emily. What would you do here? And by the way, I've tried to look this company up, and all I could find was 4 people aligned with that business. I'm assuming they may have more, although assumption is the mother of all wrongdoings, but I assumed maybe certain engineers and people that help them and sort of in the field, let's call it, may not have bothered to put it up on their LinkedIn. That's just my guess. But anyway, James, Margaret, and Emily.
Great, thanks so much, Anton. So yeah, fantastic and interesting question. I have obviously no real experience in this type of industry, but I will try to give an answer which hopefully aligns and is supportive to you. So I think when teams are stretched thin, especially, I think it becomes obviously naturally there comes a delivery issue. So I think it's how after those intense field days, then the days after could be planned more of a lighter, so that output would stay, I guess, intentional, while obviously they recover as well. I think it's build care into the work. I think maybe using short daily check-ins during those field periods, could be just one simple question is like, how is their energy today? And, catching those issues very early. Keep that balance fair and equal. Office roles can get autonomy based on outcomes, not hours as well. So I think for policy, it's, be setting principles, not defined rules. So I guess high strain one day is followed by more of a recovery the next day. Flexibility is earned through delivery, I think, and also concerns are raised early, without any sort of penalty to that. So people can stay engaged and feel obviously when effort is recognised, and also it's sustainable for them as well. So hopefully that helps.
So I was on mute. So yeah, so I don't know much about this business, but I think in general, at that stage of the business, supporting well-being doesn't need to have a big budget. It's just, I think for people doing field work, it's just consistency in like basic protection. I mean, I think just first is practical steps, just making sure that these field staff have the right gear and like clear, safety protocols, maybe recovery time after days outdoors, and maybe it's like simple routines like breaks they actually have to take, proper handover planning so they just don't feel like they are always on, and also like managers asking them about workload, and are they is the workload appropriate, not just deliverables, and maybe even like providing them some meal allowances on long days or hot drinks. Just things like that. And in terms of the work-life balance, I think it's more about being fair rather than just necessarily treating everyone the same, because obviously field work would be, very different from office-based roles. The office-based roles might just maybe need some like flexibility in hours, and in terms of the field work, maybe they also need to have like planned rest days and and maybe also predictable scheduling. I think that in general helps. I have a friend who works shifts, and it's just like really difficult without having a predictable schedule. So she gets a new schedule every single week. And yeah, I'm just, I think you also want to like make the policy feel fair by just acknowledging, different like strains, not identical schedules, maybe just something like, equity isn't everyone doing the same thing. It's just like everyone getting what they need to perform their job sustainably. So that field staff may just need structured recovery and safety protections, and office-based staff, they might maybe have like a no meetings time, maybe just clear boundaries around availability. So I think if you frame it that way, just will land as mature leadership rather than just flexible working.
I think there's some great answers there. Having worked with some scaling companies that do have sort of outdoor work or sort of in the field work as well, I know that one of the things that can be very, very powerful for a team to consider, like Margaret said, really focus on kind of the output. And it's not about work-life balance, but it's about the priorities. So that if somebody needs a different level of flexibility, as long as there's equality and fairness to it, that's fine. The other thing that I think is really important is to really, really be mindful of capacity. When startups are, kind of really, really trying to build, obviously they want to push not just themselves as founders, but the teams in terms of over delivery. But there has to be some reality, especially when you're doing sort of outside or field work as well. So I think that there has to be some really, really good, honest discussions about what the capacity is, and understanding that if somebody is spending, let's say, 8 hours in really kind of rough conditions outside, that capacity is going to be very different than if they're in front of a desk or a computer. So understanding the roles, being super clear with anybody who's coming on board, listening to them on a regular basis and checking in and finding out how they're doing in terms of their energy and in terms of health, everything. And then making really small adjustments as needed when the capacity is demanding it, or the lack of capacity is demanding it, rather. But it's all doable. It just has to be very, very honest, and it has to be very, very real. Hopefully that helps.
That's amazing advice. Thank you very much, team. I think we can move on to our second question. Team, what do you think of this image? I know I've messed it up with the lower part, but the upper part where I've tried to kind of insinuate that people can be in any situation and still tune in to join our Q&As audio, because what we're finding lately, as you've noticed, is a lot of people would rather either listen to some of the recordings, but mainly the live streams. That doesn't make for great conversation, which is why, by the way, from February that we'll start doing just a startup sprint week, we are cutting the live streams. So let's see whether we're cutting our live supply or we're cutting ways for lazy people to join us. Anyway, let's move on to the second question now. Sorry, that was just me thinking out loud. I've put that in the chat, but I'll read it out loud, both for the live streams as well as the fact that we now have started editing and publishing our Q&As as podcasts on YouTube and Spotify. So this is a fintech startup for credit scoring based in London. I think he came through our Grow London partnership. They're at seed stage. He used to work in banking, and his issue or his challenge currently is scaling a sales team. He says, we're ready to scale our sales team, but I'm not sure whether to hire experienced salespeople or train juniors. What's the best approach for rapid growth? I think the thing that he hasn't mentioned, I'm assuming that is the case, is the fact that he's realized he can't afford to pay experienced people, or at least that's my thought. Let's see what Margaret, then Emily, and then James got to say about this. What would you do here?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's the best approach is probably a mix, but I think the thing is, we don't know if you already have salespeople or not, right? But if he doesn't, then I would say 1 or 2 experienced closers first, and then juniors once you kind of proven the motion, because if you don't have, and I'm actually hiring for a senior AE role now, so that's kind of very, recent for me, but yeah, like I think, deals will be like in fintech in general will be quite complex, longer sales cycles, compliance concerns, a lot of stakeholders. I think if you have a senior account exec who can just speak to the customers, like run that discovery process properly, who can handle objectives, objections, someone who can navigate procurement, they will teach you what the sales playbook should be. If you hire juniors too early, I think they will really struggle without a clear script and without the experience. They probably just waste months trying to manage activity instead of actually building revenue. Once you've got, and also I don't know anything about this business. Do you have a clear ICP? Do you have very clear messaging? Do you have very clear pricing? Very clear working sales process? Because once you have that, then juniors could be great. At that point you can hire SDRs or just like a junior AE to drive pipeline and just run outbound, qualify leads and yeah. But so I think the juniors can be very effective when you can train them into a system. But I don't think they're like a shortcut to actually finding the system. So I would just say someone senior first to build everything, and then the junior only later.
Thank you very much. Depending on how complicated this is, once you find somebody that has a way to get past the gatekeepers, I think you may be onto something. Sorry, Emily.
I would agree with Margaret. I think the challenge with sales is that depending who you're selling to, obviously fintech startup, I'm going to assume it's B2B. You may need a more senior person who has some industry knowledge and has some of those connections to open those doors or at least start the conversations. But it's all going to depend on your what your capacity is in terms of not just paying them, but what you want to do in terms of either bonuses or commissions or whatever it could look like. So there has to be a really good hard look as to what is the actual outcome you need from this, from whomever's on your sales team, and then you can decide. I'm a big fan of promoting, hiring junior and promoting, but I also am not a fan of setting them up for failure. And if they don't have those connections or that knowledge of the acumen, then they would be set up for failure. So in my opinion, if it's the first hire, probably start with somebody a bit more experienced. If you can't get them on the payroll or as a permanent, see if you can get them on a fractional or contract basis. That might be a sort of compromise you can make.
Fantastic, Emily. And on myself, so yeah, I think we've kind of, obviously what Margaret and Emily was talking about, obviously context here is always definitive. And so if I can only answer on the question here. So I will say, being in and around sort of sales, especially from a recruitment perspective, but obviously I did sales before that as well. I've seen teams, kind of stall when they just hire seniors. I think because obviously they come in with fixed habits, fixed patterns, there's ego clashes, so they can be quite a high burn. But also I've seen people who have gone down the junior route, and even though there's high energy, there's actually limited revenue coming in. So I think here it's definitely an intentional, deliberate mix. I think it's hiring 1 or 2 experienced sellers who have, scaled before. So they're not just closed deals, but they've really have a strong acumen in this particular domain you're working in. They can obviously set the discipline, they can set the standards. And then I think juniors can come in as well alongside, who are coachable, who are hungry, they're unafraid. I found a lot with feedback. They're willing to do some of the real hard grafting, and kind of they can learn in a real environment as well. So I think that's kind of what I would say. It's probably hiring that an intentional mix, and obviously always look at growth being first, that clarity, and then obviously the headcount is always second. So I think if you get the motion right, then the people will fall into place.
Interesting take. Thank you very much to all 3 of you. I think we can now move on to the third question. She's a co-founder of a health and wellness tech startup in Brighton at pre-Series A stage. Not sure whatever that means. Where we develop mobile health tracking tools. Many of our employees have expressed interest in flexible hours to balance work with personal wellness, yet we lack a formal policy to guide this. What affordable steps can we take to establish a flexible work policy that aligns with our wellness-focused mission? Additionally, how can we ensure that flexibility is implemented fairly across departments, especially in roles with different demands? This question came via Instagram. For some reason, I can't find her on LinkedIn. She didn't mention the company name. So let's see what James, Emily, and then Margaret got to say on this. Mr. Peters.
Thank you, Anton. So yeah, fascinating question here on this. So what I would say is, yeah, I think flexibility works when it's, I guess, treated as a principle, not just a perk. So I think it's about, really defining initially, what is flexibility for your company? Focus on outcomes, not hours. So make it clear what must be delivered, and then let people choose when they do their best work, I think. You can anchor that flexibility to wellness, so encourage people to really design work around, their own energy, not just around availability. So that keeps them aligned with the mission. And obviously it's not something they would, obviously abuse that trust as well. So to keep it fair, avoid identical rules, aim for equal trust, but different around sort of how the application of that is. I think it's just documenting simple guidelines and review every 90 days. So as the team continues to grow, it's something you continue to look at. So I think flexibility always falls if it's just too vague. So I think it will be keep it as clarify it, and then I think up front, and then I think trust will come with that as well. That would be my answer to that one.
Was it me next? Sorry, Anton. I'll jump in.
Yes, it was. Sorry.
Okay,
Emily.
good. Sorry, that's what I thought, but I was mistaken. I wasn't sure if I was mistaken. I would echo what James has said. I think guidelines so that there is a really clear communication as to what the expectations are, but then with enough flex or agility to ensure that people's needs are met. There has to be a baseline. There has to be a focus on, what the output is and whichever, so that nobody feels resentful or that they're missing out. I think they, again, similar to what I said in the last response, focus on what the output is. If it, regardless of what the role is, if it's really, really, really clear what this person's deliverables are with regards to not just the what, but the how and the when, maybe not even the how, but the what and the when, and that is clearly understood. And I would actually say, shared amongst the whole group so that people feel that sort of connectedness and shared responsibility in a way. I think once you have those extremely clear, then people can kind of get the work done that they need to when they need to do it, and they can balance and prioritize their life around it in terms of their wellness. That's what I would offer.
Thank you. And last but not least, Margaret.
Yeah, so I mean, we're pretty flexible at my current company, Mixmax. So I think that the best way to build a flexible policy is just keeping simple and, as others said, like make it outcome based. So Start by defining core collaboration hours. So like, I don't know, maybe like 11 to 3 or 11 to 4, where like everyone is available for meetings, and then you can maybe allow flexibility outside of that as long as the goals are met, And then I think it's also important to clarify the basics in writing. So what are the expectations on responsiveness, how people communicate availability, what actually good performance looks like for every position. And if your mission is wellness, then maybe you can also build like small things like, protected focus time, like no meetings time, no meetings blocks, encouraging people to take breaks without guilt. So the policy really should feel like natural extension of your product values. And in terms of making that fair, I think different roles have different constraints. So the guidelines probably need to be set by role type. So for example, any kind of customer facing or support roles, they can use like shift coverage, maybe some like agreed hangover windows, where engineering and product, they might have to work more async, at least definitely for a few hours per day. So I think that again, the key is transparency. You want to define what flexibility looks like for each function, and then just ensure that managers apply it consistently, and then review every quarter based on what's working. Yeah, so that's what I would say.
You're amazing. Thank you very much, all three of you. Quick reset of the conversation. For those of you that are on the live streams and for whatever reason you're not making it onto our call here on Microsoft Teams, this is Startup Talent Q&A. We're here to help you, or help founders rather, shall we say, go from startup to scale up with on-demand tailored advice that works for you as far as finding and keeping the right people is concerned. The idea is quite simple. If you're on, let's say, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or Instagram, it doesn't matter where, and you want to ask us anything, just bear in mind that unfortunately we're unable to monitor your questions there live, so you'll have to join us here on Microsoft Teams. It's audio only, which means you can tune in from anywhere via any platform or device. Simply go to our website, startuptoscaleup.club. Scroll down a little bit, you'll see today's session, which is Startup Talent Q&A 180. You click join. It's a quick registration that will get you onto our Luma schedule, and there you'll be able to find today's Microsoft Teams link. Once you're here, simply drop your question in the chat. We'll give you the mic, introduce yourself, and then fire away with your questions. There are no wrong questions, and there's no need to be shy because it's a learning curve for us all. So today you can ask us anything related to startup talent. If, however, your questions today are not on talent, please save them for the other conversations we run. We do 6 in total. So Mondays, as you can see, today is talent, but then we also do product and tech, growth, fundraising, legal, and finances. And until now, for the last 4.5, almost 5 years, we've done them weekly. From February, we'll move on to a different format where we'll do a sort of a sprint, a startup to scale up week on the second full week of each month, which will start on the 9th of February. And then we'll have Monday's talent, Tuesday's product and tech, Wednesday's growth, Thursday's fundraising, Friday we'll have legal and finances. The first 4 days will be 12 to 1, and on Friday we'll have 2, one at 12 and one at 1 p.m. Now, let's move on to question 4. I'm the founder of a pre-seed fashion tech startup in London where we develop AI-driven tools for sustainable apparel design. Wow. As we grow, finding talent who understands both fashion and data science has been a significant challenge. Given our limited resources, what unconventional recruitment tactics can we employ to connect with candidates who have this rare combination of skills? Furthermore, how can we showcase our commitment to sustainability in our recruitment messaging to attract individuals passionate about environmentally responsible innovation? We'll go on to Emily, then Margaret, then James. But just before that, so you've sent this question via email, and thank you for that. Um, it, it wasn't very easy to find you online, i.e. on LinkedIn, just to try and get some idea on the company. And I know it's easier for me to say this, but I couldn't find, so the only thing I could find on your LinkedIn is work in so your current work in an academic institution. Therefore, maybe you should start by streamlining your online presence, in the sense that you want to have people know what is it you're doing. Because once you reach out to somebody, and if your profile doesn't look like you're in the company, or if the company doesn't look legit and all that jazz, I don't think it's going to do a lot of good to your recruitment campaigns. So somehow we've lost Emily. So maybe we can start with Margaret and then James, and hopefully Emily will be back. Margaret?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So, well, I think if you're hiring for fashion and data science, that's probably not going to be like a normal job search. And yeah, you're probably right that these profiles would be rare. They might not be actively applying. So I would just think, like, where can you find these people? Kind of, you want to fish where they already are, and you want to give them a reason to engage with you before you even ask them for an interview. So maybe you can run like a micro challenge instead of having a job ad, or maybe you can have both, like, I don't know, help us reduce fabric waste using AI. Maybe it's like a 2-hour paid challenge, and then the winner gets the contract trial, that will hopefully attract some talent, and create some buzz. And I don't know if you're like active on Instagram or TikTok, but I imagine that would be a good place to start promoting this micro challenge. And also, I think I would potentially look for data scientists in retail or e-commerce and supply chain. Yeah, it's probably going to be not like a perfect match, but more like an adjacent talent pool. Also, like, where are the communities that these people hang out? And honestly, I wouldn't know where, but like, are these like niche groups where these people hang out? Are there any like fashion tech Slack groups? Are there sustainability communities? Maybe some. Yeah, I wouldn't know exactly, but I would just basically try to post like where these people already are, and maybe also partnering with some master's programs and research groups, because I think there will be candidates who are maybe doing a master's program in data science, and they want these real world projects, so perhaps you can offer a paid internship, or a thesis topic, or like a short contract with these clear deliverables. And yeah, I think, because you're probably not going to find like a perfect candidate, so I guess you're just looking for someone who's got some proof of work, like, ask even just for like one relevant mini case rather than just years of experience. You're probably not going to find someone with like a really perfect title. And the question about, okay, how do we showcase our commitment to sustainability? So I wouldn't just say we care, because any company can say that, and they do say that. You want to prove it with specifics. So your recruitment messaging on the job description, that should clearly show what you're doing that's measurable and credible, so maybe you build, I guess you're building AI tools to reduce sampling waste and overproduction, and any of the things like that. So, and also, like, be honest about what stage you're at, what you've built, what the candidates will own. So maybe just you can even say that you're not trying to hire a unicorn, but you're building a team where fashion insight and technical skills meet, and we're making sustainability real through what we measure and ship, not just what we say. So yeah, something like that, without knowing much about the business.
Fantastic, Margaret. From myself, so I do know someone actually who does work in the sustainable fashion industry. She's her own brand and does incredibly well. So I do know this is a fantastic area to be in, which is great. I think what I have come across similar from a founder perspective when I've sat down with people, again, pre-seed, even Series A, is obviously because it's their startup, it's their baby, their child, as it were. They kind of have an understandable belief that people would be just wanting to join that business, and they expect people, to to apply. Like, I don't know what recruitment strategies you're using at the moment, but ultimately it's never the case. Obviously, usually the brand isn't strong enough. It gets to a certain stage where where maybe you do get more inbound traffic at a certain stage, but usually at this stage it's very rare, if nigh on impossible. So it's about how you can be able to showcase your business, and that could be through doing things like Instagram lives, and promoting what you're actually doing and connecting with people if that is your audience in that particular platform, or TikTok, for example, as well. So these particular platforms are probably, would lead me to sort of think that these would be the best platforms for you to promote on and showcase the work. But outside of that, it's being, obviously, you can go on to live job boards, but as you say, that person who sits between fashion and data is, I think it's pretty rare they're going to be on there. So I'd be looking at people who, I'd be looking at communities. I'd be looking at obviously building your own sort of brand on a particular platform you choose, and share sort of real sustainability problems that you are solving, because when you do that, people start to get interested. Show the trade-offs, show any sort of unfinished thinking or things you're going through, which people can maybe dive in to help. So look at, I guess any other sort of unconventional ways could be, short design and data challenges, real-time case issues, which you could do, any sort of paid micro projects, collaborations, looking at open calls for contributors as well. So it's just being able to really to signal sustainability, avoid, I guess, lead with proof, show how decisions are made, what you're making, how, how materials you are looking at, are rejected, looking at how margins can be sacrificed for impact. So it's really make people obviously more aware of the sustainability challenges you are solving, and see how they might align, because obviously when the mission is visible for people, then they will make those decisions, and obviously then talent would start to look to join yourself. But I think that's kind of what I would sort of say is, is promoting your brand, getting out there, really showing some of the issues you're trying to solve, and be able to help and attract people that way through, as I say, through Instagram lives, for example, or TikTok lives or anything like that, I would say.
Thank you very much, Dean. Here's my quick 2 pence on this. If you haven't got a penny to your name to put onto this, then that's a different story. But if you do have, so just kind of following on from the TikToks and Instagrams and Pinterest, you may benefit from just doing some targeted advertising to people that could both be your clients as well as potential candidates. That could go quite far. If you haven't got money for that, then I'd go to universities. Find various courses or colleges of sort of adult students, rather, shall I say, and find a way. There's a lot of universities out there that are quite open to having their students come in on work experience, to having people come in for various projects, to have people come in and give talks. But then there's also quite a few societies out there in universities. You've got, just for argument's sake, you'll have data scientists who are part of some kind of fashion club at X university, and so on. This is quite a good way to go in and find people without spending money. Of course, with this, you have to spend the time. You've got to build whatever relationship and then curate it with these universities, but that can work quite well. I haven't tried it for this particular field, but I've tried it in other fields. I've tried it in consulting tech. I've tried it in build and design tech. I've tried it in MarTech, and a few, at least these three that I can remember, actually worked quite well for me. And the startups I was with at the time, so might be worth looking into that. Right, I think we've got time for one more question. We've got 8 minutes to go. We'll go into that, and then we'll wrap it up for the day. So Emily had to leave, by the way, team, because she had an emergency. Right, so I'm the founder of a pre-seed sports tech startup in Leeds. We're focused on developing wearable sensors that track athletes' performance and health metrics. With a small team of engineers, any departure could significantly affect our development schedule. Practical, affordable measures can we implement to mitigate the impact of a key team member leaving, especially when hiring replacements may be delayed? Furthermore, how can we retain intellectual property and safeguard knowledge in a way that supports our long-term objectives without creating complex legal barriers? Jesus. I think last one we started with Margaret and then James, didn't we? Shall we go to James? You want to start first on this and then we go to Margaret? Any thoughts?
Fantastic, Anton. Thanks so much. So yeah, fascinating question, and obviously again from a business perspective looks really interesting as well. So I guess here my answer would be, so at pre-seed, I think it's obviously like anything, like anywhere in any business, it's very difficult to prevent exits, but it's also removing, single points of failure as well, especially at the early stage. So I would, start by making knowledge visible. So it's about getting people to document decisions, not just the code. So short notes on why things were built a certain way, and more than obviously having perfect documentation. So that I'd recommend that. I'd pair people by default as well. So I don't think any critical system being built should just be on one person or one head. So I think regular pairing spreads that context fast, and keeps knowledge across the team, not just with one person, and obviously costs nothing to do that. I think from a design perspective, I would say every feature which is being designed should be explainable. So, within sort of 20 to 30 minutes. So again, it's something which is shared within the team and not just on one person. I think to how to keep, IP, obviously, intellectual property. So protecting that, I think, from what is more sort of my head, I think clear IP clauses, things like centralized repos, could be looking at controlled access as well. So avoid any sort of legal complexity around anything. But I think retention improves when people feel valued. So I think teams stay longer when systems are strong and the pressure is shared across the team, not just on one individual person. So that's kind of, I guess, what my answer would be for that.
Margaret, are you audible? You're still muted.
Yeah,
Margaret.
sorry.
Yep,
Yeah,
perfect.
no,
That's
sorry.
okay.
No, I was still muted. So, well, I think, at pre-seed stage, frankly, any stage, to reduce the impact of someone leaving, you just need to design the team in a way that knowledge isn't just like trapped in one person's head. So, things like documenting critical workflows, as you go, like keeping code and technical decisions visible, maybe having like a backup owner for every core system, and we have like a shared engineering notion. In my current company, we have regular demos. I think they happen every week or 2 weeks, just to help everyone understand what's being built and why. So yeah, so I think if you do that, if there's like cross-training and clear ownership, so then resignation, well, yeah, it will still be a disruption, but not a disaster. To be honest, I don't know really enough about the IP and like protecting knowledge, but I just imagine like strong confidentiality and IP assignment clauses in contract. Yeah, I really wouldn't. Sorry, I actually have a delivery downstairs, so I need to just pick it up. But that's actually all I could say. I don't know much about the IP.
No worries, Margaret. Go for it. Here's my quick 2 pence. As the experts here on the panel have said, you can't stop people from leaving. You can do a few things to try and make it easier for them to stay. And all this stuff, it's all good. I'll start from the back. So in terms of what Margaret just mentioned, as far as IP is concerned and taking that elsewhere, there are quite a few companies, or there are companies rather, shall I say, out there that put in clauses where you can't work for any clients that you've come across via that company. Some even go as far as saying you can't work for any competitors within, I think it's 6 months. Some have it of leaving the company. You definitely, obviously, can put and should put stuff about sharing the IP that they have built or acquired whilst they're with you, rather than focusing on things you can do to stop them from doing X, Y, Z. As the panelists have said here, maybe try and focus on things that you can do to make their life easier to stay. Now, we, and not just us here, but most people that know anything about startup land, keep talking about how it takes a specific kind of animal or a human being like us to work in startups, i.e. startups aren't for everyone. But at the same time, you are to understand that they're not slaves either. Yes, they want to thrive in chaos and all that jazz, but at the same time, they want to be treated in a certain way. And you also need to understand, and mind you, I've made this mistake myself, where being a founder, and I think James mentioned earlier about, or maybe it was in the previous question, but how, it's your baby. You see it as this being the best thing since sliced bread and all that jazz. And we founders often forget that that is not the case for everybody that has joined us on this journey. And it shouldn't be, and it's fine if it's not. So you can't expect somebody to, let's say for me, it's not unusual to start working at 8:45 in the morning and carry on working until about 3:20 the next morning. You can't expect other people to do that. So try and treat people like adults. That's one. Give them an opportunity to do what needs to be done. But as it's been mentioned here, to learn as well. It's now 1 o'clock, so we are on top of the hour. Margaret needs to leave. Thank you, Margaret. James, any parting words for us before we let you go?
No, thanks so much, Anton. Thanks for having me. Thanks to everyone, obviously, who submitted questions. Hopefully all the answers provided were beneficial, and have an awesome rest of the day.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate that. And hopefully we'll see you in the new format as well that we're doing once a month. But I'll send a message just to kind of go through a few details. Right here, we are 1 minute over the hour. So thank you very much to everyone that has tuned in today. I really appreciate those that send questions. Just bear in mind that this was our last weekly Startup Talent Q&A From February, we will only be doing one Startup Talent Q&A per month, and that would be on the second Monday of each month. We're actually doing what we're calling a Startup to Scale Up week. This will be a bit of a sprint to try and equip founders with pretty much everything they need in order to have the right foundations and kind of solve the right challenges in the right way as they make that journey from startup to scale up. We've identified 6 major topics that are absolutely vital, and these are in the Q&As that we've done so far. So talent, product and tech, growth, fundraising, legal, and finances. So what will happen is, for example, in February, on the 9th of February, on Monday, we'll have a Startup Talent Q&A. On the 10th of February, that is Tuesday, we'll have a Startup Product and Tech Q&A. So Monday will be about hiring people. Tuesday will be about designing and building whatever product or service you have. Wednesday will be about growth, so sales, marketing, go-to-market, all that jazz. Thursday will be about fundraising, so how to get funding from either banks or investors or various other means. Friday, that would be, so on Friday we'll have 2 sessions. At 12 o'clock, we'll have one on the legal side of your business. And at 1 o'clock, we'll have one on the financial side of your business. So this will, anyway, you'll all be receiving details of that. Another change that we'll make is we won't have any more live streams. So everything will be done on Microsoft Teams. You can't follow us and tune into our live streams anymore from February. But what we'll do is we'll try and make this as exclusive as we possibly can, while still maintaining 2 crucial things that we have since day one when we've started this almost 5 years ago. Number 1, making it free for founders. And number 2, giving an opportunity to people to tune in from wherever they are, because it's audio only. We also have a WhatsApp group that you can connect with fellow founders, investors, operators, and of course, our amazing experts and panelists that we have on our panels. On our website, startuptoscaleup.club, you'll be able to find both the WhatsApp community as well as future sessions for you to register to. With that in mind, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow for Startup Product and Tech Q&A. Otherwise, thank you and God bless.